All right. Bell word for today. Who are the Taliban? Ms. Balducci. Protected Al Qaeda, right? It's a terrorist organization, a large one that actually shares control of the Afghan people, right? Afghani people. And they're still really in control. It's like the Afghan government is trying to dispose of themselves of the Taliban, but them in combination to U.S. forces, we haven't been able to defeat them. So essentially what has happened over the past few months is we started negotiating with them, right? And those peace talks have broken off for the past week, and so the Taliban's still in place in Afghanistan, okay? So they're a terrorist organization that protected the Al Qaeda, right? Number two, where did the U.S. find Osama bin Laden? Where did we end up finding him eventually, Ben?
In his compound in the wall.
And that is in what country?
Pakistan.
Pakistan is what we're looking for. That's what I'd like you to remember that is Pakistan. Sound good? So it wasn't even in Afghanistan. In a way, we kind of violated state sovereignty because Pakistan is supposed to be it's supposed to be an ally of the United States, right? So we're supposed to be on the same page, working together, and we were a little suspicious of some things that were going on in Pakistan. So we didn't tell them that we didn't share that information with them about Osama bin Laden potentially being found there. So we flew our helicopters in, infiltrated the compound. The SEAL team ended up taking out Osama bin Laden then, right, for the things that he did. Masterminded on September 11th. So question number 3, what's Al Qaeda? Ms. Linder?
It's in Afghanistan.
Okay, it was. All right. I don't think there's much remnants left over of Al Qaeda. So that's one thing, successful aspect of the war in Afghanistan. Mr. Minton? Exactly. So they were led by Osama bin Laden for an extended period of time, especially during the attacks of 9/11. They're the ones, the masterminds behind it, right? They were protected by the Taliban for many, many years, the late 80s, 1990s, early 2000s. More recently, they've been dispersed throughout other parts of the world, finding different locations to be able to run their operations. Again, one reason why they're able to do what they did in Afghanistan is because of the political unrest there. If you find that type of environment where it's really unstable politically, there's no authoritative figure watching over you and allows you to do your terrorist type of thing. So they've kind of set up shop in other places of the world. For example, like Somalia would be a great place for it right now because of the political instability that's going on there. Right? It works out that way. Anybody have any questions about the content from yesterday associated with September 11th? No? All right, let's go ahead and take a moment and we'll do our bellwether quiz. So go ahead and... All right, guys, today we are going to learn a annotation strategy or method that we're going to use in global cultures classes. So I imagine you've done this or learned some of this stuff in like English classes, a particular method to break down written work or articles. Well, we're going to have a specific one for global cultures, and it's called SubSearch PS. Sound good? So it's an acronym, and we need to familiarize yourself with what each letter represents, what each letter means, okay? Essentially, what SubSearch PS is, it's a 3-phase reading. We're going to read the article 3 times over, and through the process of doing a couple things inside of those 3 phases, we're going to hopefully collect some information, and it's going to stick into our long-term comprehension. Okay? So the first phase is the sub-phase. You don't have to write any of this down, but the sub-phase, the sub-search, quick first draft reading focuses on finding the big picture of a text. So it's fast and big picture is what we're looking at. So the first S stands for skim. I encourage line just left of center if you haven't done so already, and then you can write your acronym vertically, right? And then out to the side, you can write a few details with each of the main points there. All right, so again, S stands for skim. So it's fast reading. We talked about skimming earlier in the week. Twice as fast as our average reading rate. When we skim, our comprehension is going to decrease from 70 to 80% comprehension for average reading rate down to 50%. We are sacrificing comprehension for speed because our goal is to get the big picture. You guys ever seen these things? They're like collages of smaller pictures and then they make up one big picture, right? So it's kind of like a metaphor analogy for what we're doing with our skimming and sub-search. We're going so fast we can't see the small pictures. We're not looking at the details. We're just getting the big picture, the grasp that it's a soccer ball. Okay? The U stands for underline. You need to limit yourself on what you underline. You need to underline with a purpose. Some mistakes that students have made in the past. I'll give them a sub-search assignment with an article. It's a couple pages long, about 5-10 paragraphs, something like that. They'll give it back to me, and every stinking line is underlined. Every line is underlined. Okay, we're trying to separate what's important from the rest of it. If you're underlining everything, can you really tell what's important, what's not important? No, so don't underline everything. You may want to limit yourself. Say that you got an article that's 12 paragraphs long. Find 3 main ideas and underline those. That's it. Don't underline every main idea of every paragraph. Everybody got that? Because we can't figure out what's most important there, and you're trying to juggle too many concepts then. Okay? The B. What do we bracket? The B stands for bracket, and what do we bracket? We bracket the thesis statement. What is the thesis statement? A thesis statement is the main idea of main ideas. It's like the most important sentence that's in the entirety of the article. Okay? So, for example, here in a second, we're going to get some practice. We're going to get an article from Trevor Noah, the guy that grew up in apartheid South Africa in one of the townships, right? Our article is going to have 2 paragraphs. So inside that 2 paragraphs, you got to pick out one sentence that is more important than any of the others, and then you're going to bracket it. Okay? Problems the students have in the past, they bracket a sentence in each paragraph. Don't do that. You get one for the entirety of the article. Sound good? One sentence to bracket. That's phase 1. We're transitioning to phase 2 now. Okay? SUB is phase 1. Sound good? Phase 2 is all about the margins. Okay? This is evidence that this idea of filling up the margins isn't new. This has been around for thousands of years. This goes back to like monks in medieval time periods in Europe. They filled up the margins back then. Okay? In their Latin writing. All right, the second phase is really SEA and then R and C as well. SEA, RC. I put those extra 2 letters there. Okay, so this phase, this segment is for getting the details. So we got the big picture with the sub. Now we need the details. So we dig a little bit deeper. Okay, so the S, the second S stands for symbols. The second S stands for symbols. There are literally hundreds of symbols that can be used in your margins. And you are well prepared for this, right? You've got plenty of practice. You guys practice doing this all the time. What am I referring to? Yeah, your emojis, right? You can communicate with just emojis. You don't need letters anymore, right? Words, you just use emojis. So you use, what you're familiar with, and start putting them in the margins, outsides of the text. That helps you to make a connection to it. Okay, you can even go beyond emojis and start using other symbols. But you can create your own system. It doesn't necessarily have to follow like a mandated sub-search system on symbols. Okay, you get to come up with your own version of symbols there, make it meaningful for you. The E, of all the letters, this is the one that's probably overlooked the most because students don't know what the word enumeration means. Okay, enumeration is kind of a fancy word for numbering, putting numbers inside the text. Sometimes authors will get practice with this with our word of the day here in a couple weeks. We'll talk about the magic 3. They get more detailed and descriptive by putting things in series of 3 items. Sometimes it's more than that. So if you ever see that, what you need to do is go inside the text and write numbers next to those items that have been listed in order. Okay? So, for example, the North won the Civil War for 3 main reasons. 1, better supplies. 2, more economic power. And 3, higher population in the northern states. So the original article does not have these numbers in it. The person that's doing the sub-searching has gone in and written number 1, number 2, and number 3. That simple process of putting those numbers in the text is making you go through it one more time, and it's helping to make some attachments to these thoughts, these concepts. It increases your long-term memory. Okay, you're much more likely to remember these things. The A, it stands for abbreviations. Again, you're well prepared for this because you use abbreviations all the time in your text message forms of communication, right? So you can use those ideas and put them in the margins, fill up the margins with your symbols and with your abbreviations then. Sound good? I like hashtags. I'm from a little bit of an older generation. You guys use hashtags? Anybody use a hashtag? What's that? A number sign. Yes, that is the number sign. Right. Older people like myself with Facebook and Twitter, hashtags is more and more popular. So for me, it would be something that's humorous, and because of the humorous connection, I'm much more likely to remember it. All right, the R and the C. This is the end of the second phase, but this is the most important, not only of the second phase, but of the entire sub-search process. You might write that out to the side. That the R and the C is more important than any of the other letters. Okay? The R and the C stands for react and connect. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to create an emotional engagement. Right? Emotional reactions. Personal comments are most memorable. I'm going to take a moment to describe the physiology of your brains right now. As a young high school student, your brain is not fully matured, right? So you're kind of operating at, not half capacity, but not full capacity, okay? A fully matured brain has a prefrontal cortex. It's fully matured. That's what's right behind your skull. That's the rational, responsible, higher order thinking part of your brain, okay? Just not there yet for you, okay? So consequently, you revert to using a part of your midbrain called the amygdala. The amygdala has a tendency to be a little bit more emotional driven and a little bit more irrational in the decisions that you make. I'll give you an example. Sometimes, at this point in time in your life, relationship with significant others, pretty important to you. So, sometimes tough things happen and you break up, right? And after the breakup, what's going through your head? I don't think I can move. I don't think I can go on, right? Some of us are just overwhelmed by this whole process, and it gets the best of us. That's because of the emotional engagement that you're going through. Even if you've only been going out for like a week, right? You still have that irrational mindset because of your brain. Okay. So with that in mind, we know that we have a tendency to be more emotional than at other points in time in our lives. So we can take that and use that to an advantage here whenever it comes to reflecting upon items inside of an article, right? So what does it look like when we do our react and connect? Out to the margins, you may write this down in your notes, you need to start phrases that says, this reminds me of, right? This reminds me of statements need to fill up your margins. Everybody got that? So you're reading the text, you're coming across something, and your mind may drift off to something else off to the side that may be somewhat related, but it's a personal experience to you. So out in the margin you write, this reminds me of, and you actually write that thought down. Okay? This reminds me of the time that I went to the pumpkin patch, right? Or whatever it may be. Okay? But when you do that, that's going to add an attachment to the content, and then it's going to be easier to retrieve that information because of that connection that you've had there. Okay? I had a student earlier today. We were doing the reacting, connecting in our practice time, and they went above and beyond the this reminds me of statements. They started writing questions out to the side. All right? You got some content. I don't fully understand it and grasp it. There's some holes in that article that I'm not fully aware of, and so we started writing questions out to the side. That's an emotional engagement as well. That's reacting and connecting. So I do encourage that as well. So that's the end of the second phase. This is what the end of the second phase should look like. Okay? Sometimes when we look at our papers and our articles and we're thinking it's nice and clean, I don't want to mess it up. That's the opposite of what we want to do with our subsearching. We want to destroy the paper that's in front of us. Okay? We are marking that thing up, and that is reflecting our flexing of our mental muscles, and we're working. We're going to work with the paper that's right in front of us. Sound good? Okay? That's what subsearching is. Filling up our margin with our react and connecting, our symbols, and our abbreviations. All right, the H. The H is for highlights. And we have a saying that goes along with highlighting. We say that we highlight like gold. We highlight like gold. How much gold is there in the world today?
A lot.
Are you sure? If there was a lot of gold, then how much would it be worth? Very little. Gold's a little bit expensive, so that tells us that how much gold is there out in the world? There's not much. Okay? So if there's not much gold, we just haven't found it yet. It does deep enough. So if there's not that much gold out there in the world, what do you think I want you to do with your highlighting? Yeah, I don't want you to do it very much either. All right, this is the third phase. So you've already read through twice. You've skimmed. The second time through, you've added your symbols, your enumeration, your abbreviations, your react and connect. This is the last time that you're going through. You pick out 3 things. What we got? 3 items or less that you highlight. That's the max. It's 3. Sound good? Students in the past, the mistake that they have, they don't understand this concept. They become like Bob Ross and they start painting, right? Their entire article. If you've highlighted everything, does anything stand out? No. Okay? So don't miss this point. You highlight like gold. You don't start your sub-searching with the highlighter in hand. Everybody got that? You don't start with the highlighter. You finish with the highlighter. Okay? The last segment after the H is the PS, maybe. The PS stands for paraphrase and summarize. Paraphrase and summarize. We combine these 2 words for one application. What you do is you write a 10-word statement, or a statement that is 10 words or less. You cannot go over 10 words. That's our rule with our PS statements. Everybody got that? A simple sentence, right? That is 10 words or less. Okay? So you may think, well, that's easy, right? Well, you got a whole article to summarize in 10 words. So it is a little bit of a challenge. And you have to be purposeful with your statement. You can't write a PS statement saying stuff happened. Right? It's too vague. Right? I can't get anything from that. You're not getting anything from that when you write a statement like that. It has to be purposeful with your statement. So 10 words or less. Everybody got that? Make sure that you write that rule down there. All right, we're going to get some practice here. Okay? Let's go ahead and come up and grab the article here. Everybody come up and grab that, please.
I got you, Jordan.
Let's hope I have enough.